Hi guys. There is a very interesting there are a series of interesting conversations going on in the Nigerian community that have gone on for a very long time, and these are things I've personally experienced and things that I have also read about. But I'm gonna try to add up all the things I've learned over time from therapy, reading up and everything. So there's a very there's a side, a group of people, men, that say the reason a man beats a woman is because she's disrespectful. There's another side that says, regardless of what a woman says to you, you shouldn't beat her. They're both right in a way, but there's a thin line that could be crossed and someone becomes abused. The major problem is that Nigerians, we were raised, my generation was raised to never question authority. Whatever your parents tell you, do it. They even mistranslate children, obey your parents in the Lord, because my parents used that on me a lot growing up. On us, we're 6. Until I now said, parents, provoke not your children to wrath. That was the beginning of my assertive communication style. But the Nigerian community is now used to assertion. They are very used to people doing everything they are told to do and not challenging authority. It also translates from parents, when you leave parents, to when you get to school, they expect you to do everything you're told to do. And then when you get to work, you're expected to do everything your boss tells you to do. That's why people become bootleggers. They do everything their boss says they should do so they can climb. And then when you get to the government, do everything your suppliers or whatever your godfathers are telling you to do, otherwise they'll go against you. So naturally, the Nigerian is programmed to obey authority, in quotes. And you cannot resist whatever is supposed to be authority over your life. Meaning, if you're a child, you can't question an elder, a senior person. If you're an employee, you can't question your employer. If you're a woman, you can't question a man. You see where the root of all these things has started from. So, unfortunately, it's not the way humans are. Okay, let me talk about the Igbos, because I'm Igbo. My uncle wrote an article about the Igbo system of government one time, I think 3 years ago, 4, 5 years ago. Very interesting read. And I realized where the whole thing was from. So the Igbos have the egalitarian system of government. Egalitarian. The Yorubas have the hierarchical. Hausas have hierarchical. Everybody seems to have hierarchical, where it's about hierarchy. Okay, you're my senior. Hey, then you prostrate and bow because the person is superior to you. But the Igbos have the egalitarian. Everybody is equal. We don't think anybody is higher than us. That's why a boy can report his father to the chief if something goes wrong. But you can't see that in some other cultures. And that's why in the churches, for example, people now start saying daddy, 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 daddy. It's not the Igbo culture. It's a borrowed Yoruba culture in the church, right? So it's just like saying Roman Catholic Church in Nigeria. So it's now Yoruba Nigerian Christianity that most people practice. They prostrate to the pastor, they worship the pastor, they deify the pastor. It has nothing to do with Christianity. It has nothing to do with the Igbos. So that is where most of our root cause and problem start from. As a young child growing up, I didn't even bow to people. Like when you shake, and then I was now trained as a salesperson, give a firm handshake. So when you give an older person a firm handshake, it's disrespectful. But in the corporate world, it means you know your job. Like, why do you confuse people? And fairly enough, most bankers, because I was also trained a banker, don't call people sir. They call you by your name. Hey, James. Hey. So it's a culture we were introduced into as my early work life that most Nigerians were also not comfortable with. So I'm here with this man who I wanted to marry his daughter, prospective father-in-law. He goes back and forth with his ideologies. They get me confused. I give him my feedback. I tell my father about it. My father says, Meaning, there's a way you say things, it seems you're disrespectful. He said, it seems like you're disrespectful. The thing about my dad is he's always been exposed, right? So he was referring to my assertive style of communication, not aggressive. So I think about people used to think that there were just 3 styles of communication: passive, passive-aggressive, and aggressive. When I moved to the US in 2018, I had this conversation with a nurse, an African-American nurse, and she said, no, I have to be aggressive because aggression means, I'm like, something wrong with that. So I did my digging while we were conversing, and I realized that there was assertive. There's the difference. So assertion is different from aggression. Assertion, you're firm, yes, but you're talking about the issue at hand. You're not attacking the person. You're addressing the issue. For Christians, just like Jesus said, when your brother offends you, go and tell him his fault. His fault. Not, you're always doing this. You're a useless man. You're a useless woman. Tell him his fault. That's the assertive communication style. Hey, honey, I don't like how you came back yesterday night drunk. You're not supposed to be drunk. Why are you doing this? It's different from, you're a drunk man, you're a useless man, you're good for nothing. Or, honey, I know, thank you for making the food, but I think it was a bit too salty. Can you reduce it because of my blood, blah, 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 blah. It's different from, you can't cook, useless woman, I want to hear my men, no, blah, blah. So that's the difference that we did not learn growing up. And because of that, when women now become enlightened and begin to stand for their rights, like in the Nigerian community, they are deemed disrespectful or rude. Just like I was deemed disrespectful and rude. I can talk about it because it's something I've experienced. When you stand for what is right for you, people who are overbearing and who are prone to be abusers take it to mean disrespect. That's why when the Igbos say, leave us alone, we want to say it, they say, oh, they are terrorists. Because when you resist oppression, you're branded a bad person by the abuser. Now, that's one angle to it. It's possible that the woman who is assertive is deemed disrespectful by the man who does not understand the difference between assertion and aggression. So further studies were done even after I realized that there's assertive, passive, passive-aggressive, and aggressive communication styles. There's a new one, manipulative. Unfortunately, that's the skill most people have in Nigeria, manipulative. Then there's also the dangerous one is the passive-aggressive, where you're passive, you appear like you're passive, like you're calm, but you're very dangerous. You are passive, but within, underground, you're working against the person. That's the most dangerous style of communication. That's the style a hypocrite uses. And that is also what most Christians in Nigeria use. They won't speak against the authority in his presence or her presence, but they will backbite against you together as a gang behind you. Of course, because you're an oppressor, of course, so they have no option to do that. Because when they stand against you in person, you attack them and they lose their job, they lose their life, they lose something. So they now resort to, yes, okay, Oga, yes, man, yes, daddy. And then they go behind you and work against you. So unfortunately, we learn to become passive-aggressive growing up, mischievous people. We will not resist you in your presence, but we'll talk about you in the beer parlor. We'll talk about you when we are hanging out and making our hair. But we will not resist you in person because we are afraid that you will use your hammer on us. So like I said, it's a bit complex, but you have to understand the difference. Most of you Nigerians that I'm talking to are Christians. So let's use what Jesus said. If your brother offends you, that's if your neighbor, your friend, somebody offends you, go and tell him his fault. Fault. Not, he didn't say go and attack his personality. Tell him his fault. Pharaoh, let my people go. Simple. But Pharaoh thought it was, how dare you? Because Pharaoh, of course, was an oppressor. How dare you tell me that? So, when an abused and oppressed person tells the abuser, please let me go, it's deemed disrespectful. When the black community in America says, hey, give us voters' right, give us this, oh, you guys are growing wings, you want to break free. So that's just the thing. How do we, on one hand, support Harriet Tubman for killing her slave masters and escaping? But on the other hand, when a man who was calm, who has endured verbal abuse from a woman for a long time, eventually breaks and hits the woman, you call him a monster. How do you judge the same issue differently? Is it because of gender? Or how do you, when a woman who was calm the entire time was being abused by a man verbally, physically, financially, suddenly wakes up and breaks away, breaks his head with a bottle or something, you say, yes, finally she's free. But when it switches to the gender is switched, you say, like, how do you do that comfortably? Bias. We're trained. Oh, everything a woman does is fine. Even if she says something wrong, even if she says you're a useless man, you're foolish, says that to you all your life, it's fine. You should never hit her. Let me tell you something about abuse if you've never experienced it. I have, in different levels. Me, I was diagnosed with financial abuse, emotional, psychological abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse, all manner of abuse. Like me, I was like, damn, me alone like this. Seriously, when it's funny now because back then it was not. I was like, me. And then I was this toxic, masculine Nigerian man who was like, how can you say I'm being abused? How? But I'm like, yes, sir. This, that. I'm like, whoa. And it changed my mindset. Two things happen when you're abused. Just two things. Two things happen to you. You become a vegetable, meaning you become useless. You lose all your self-worth. Or you have a resistance growing in you until you revolt. And that revolution is always aggressive. There's never been a time when someone who was oppressed for a long time came and said, okay, please, let me go. I'm going to go now so that, I don't want to offend you, so let me go. And then you go, and then everything is peaceful. It's not possible. Pharaoh. Let's use the story of Pharaoh, even for those who don't believe it's true. Pharaoh had to experience hardship first before he let Israel go. Harriet Tubman's slave masters were killed first before she escaped. Haitian Revolution, they had to kill all to become free. American independence, they had to fight the, colonial masters of the colonies. I mean, it's the same thing, same people, but they had to fight to become free. Every time there's been a sort of freedom or revolution, there's always been aggression. So it's either you remain a slave for too long, a slave to abuse, oppression, and then remain a vegetable for the rest of your life, or you revolt and become free. Either somebody else comes to fight for you to break the grip of oppression, or you do it yourself from within. Check the Ghanaian independence and also how they cleaned up the system. They had to wipe out all the corrupt officials, There had to be a coup. And that's why it's something that's happened over time. It shouldn't change when it gets to the woman. It should not change. I know most people have followed some of my stories about my parents, my family growing up, because I'm trying to be very vocal about abuse and mental health so people can get out of it. But if I'm going to be very honest with you, my mom's mouth was very, very toxic. Oh, God. I've seen that in most other women whose families I've visited. Oh, boy. Toxic as hell. That's my mom's favorite. From other people, you are a useless son, you're a useless man, you will never make it, you're useless, you die, you got 1 week. These are what mothers tell their children. or wives tell their husbands. Like, how do you live with such a person in your house? But when the case is being judged, oh, happy I know why I can't believe her, she's a woman. Oh, for those of you who don't understand, what I said is, you die a horrible death. Useless man, you never make it. Just may the ground open and swallow you. Those are the things that women tell their children or their husbands. How is that even normal? But when someone endures that for a long time and eventually revolts, the person is a beast. Like, seriously. The beast has been the person who has been abusing verbally, emotionally, psychologically the entire time. You can never... So let me tell you, I had a life ahead of me. Very brilliant and okay. But just 2 years, let me say 2. From January 2016, we interacted. Then I stopped talking in February. Came back we apologized in June. We started again. So from June 2016 to July 2017, until when it was over in October 2018, I had become a vegetable. Like, some girls are like, oh, he's attractive, he's a player, he's a playboy. Let me tell you something. There was a time I would go to my ex and say, with tears in my eyes, why did you marry me? But you know, why did you marry me if I'm not that attractive? Me. Yes, it got to a point where I thought I was useless. Just so you know, if you don't understand psychological abuse, you'll never understand it. Except, oh, I think some of us do, because when your parents keep telling you you're useless, you'll never make it. Even when you get out, you suddenly start telling yourself that you're useless. You'll never make it, so you don't try hard. That's psychological abuse. That's emotional, mental, it's the same thing. I mean, the same category. Mental, emotional, psychological abuse, because everything about you is like, ew, you're trying to prove that you're good enough till you die. See? But the problem is, there are men who cannot stand being questioned. So even when they say something and their child or their wife says, no, honey, but that's not the right thing, no matter the tone of voice she uses, how dare you? How can you challenge me? Those guys have a huge problem. Just like the women that say, you'll never make it, you're useless, they are on the same category of broken human beings, and they are abusers. So, where do we draw the line? We have to educate ourselves first. There's the assertive communication style, which is very healthy. We have to learn to start having difficult conversations. Healthy conflict. You must have healthy conflict, though. You cannot escape it, except you want to remain a slave or a subject or subservient or a lesser human till you die. You have to have healthy conflict. You must say no when you're not comfortable with it. Because if you don't say no, you become a yes man until you die, which means you're not living your life. You're living the life of another person. And that is where we have to draw the line. Now, let me repeat the communication styles for those of you who don't want to go do the short studies or research. There's passive. Passive is whatever you say goes. The person doesn't respond, doesn't even feel the need to even have a voice. Such people just endure till they die. They don't want trouble. So maybe because of the way they were raised, they saw a lot of problems, so they just wanted to avoid problem because they're so, I don't know, broken. Whatever you tell them, yes, okay, that's fine. Just for peace. Maybe go for peace to reign. Let's just do it. Oh, for peace to reign. I'll do what my wife says. Oh, for peace to reign, because a happy wife is a happy life. So let me just do whatever she says. So you become passive. Then there is aggressive. Aggressive attacks the person. It's always against a person. It's condescending, it's disrespectful, it's mean, it's rude. So it's always, even in conversations, you hear things like, you're useless man, you're not good enough, you never amount to anything. Look at your mates, look at what your mates are doing. Why don't you have sense? Can't you have sense? Don't you see that this thing is senseless? Can't you see how useless this thing is? Can't you see how childish it sounds? Now, those statements don't address an issue. They are drafted to destroy a person's self-worth. That's aggressive. Then there is passive-aggressive. It means, yeah, are you going to do this? Yeah, I'll do it. Now, sometimes passive aggression is a response to aggression. Let's say someone is always telling you, nagging you, do this. Oh, okay, I'll do it. But you know you're not going to do it. Like the parable that Jesus said, which one kept the word of his father? The father had 2 sons, and he told one to do something, said he's not going to do it. And then he told another one to do it. He said, yes, I'll do it. But at the end of the day, the one who said he wouldn't do it did it. He asked the people, so who did his father's will? He said the one who did the will, even though he said he wasn't going to do it. So that first son is like passive aggressive. Oh, I will do it, but doesn't do it. So because they don't want conflict, or you don't want conflict, you don't resist, but you still go back and do what you want to do. You undermine the person. That's passive aggression. Or where you purposely use microaggressive statements and then you pull back and pretend you didn't know what you did. Then you make the other person look crazy. That's passive aggressive. And there is assertive. Assertive is you're doing everything, you're hurting everybody, and then the person just tells you, hey, James, please, can you stop yelling? I don't understand you when you yell. That's not disrespectful. You're yelling. That sometimes comes from children. And your child tells you, Mommy, please stop yelling. I can't hear what you're saying. Whenever you yell, I don't hear what you're saying. They're not being disrespectful. They're telling you, they're giving you honest feedback. Although you think you're communicating to me, since you're yelling, I'm tuning off. Can you please say it calmly? That person is not attacking your personality. The person is attacking what you're doing. Saying, please, can we have a reasonable conversation? That's an assertive communication style that most of us don't want to have. We're not used to it because once I'm an adult, a child must do what I'm saying, or once I'm a man, a woman must do what I'm saying, or once I'm the woman bringing in on majority of the money, the man must do what I'm saying. Once I'm a woman who is the boss. So once you're in a position of authority, which is the root cause of abuse, power and control. Once you have power, you want to control things. You are an abuser. And when someone challenges you honestly or says that something you're doing is wrong, you say the person is disrespectful. It's not the same. Then there's a manipulative communication style. Ooh, oh my God. Person will tell you everything, the right things you want to hear, and eventually still do what they want to do. But even when you catch them, will keep making it look like those guys are masters in gaslighting. Even when you catch them, but they'll twist it. So that's the manipulative communication style. As long as they keep gaining from you, they'll keep slithering through like a snake. So please, let's know the difference. Is it okay for a man to hit a woman who is assertive? No. Is it okay for a man to hit a woman who is verbally abusive? It's up to you to answer. Is it okay for a woman to stab, beat up a man who's been abusive to her for a long time? It's up to you to answer. Is it okay for a child who has been verbally abused by his parents a long time, emotionally, to suddenly disrespect them and say no? It's up to you to answer. Let's not say hurt people, broken people, break people, aggression begets aggression, abuse begets abuse. But when it comes to some people, we try to change the rules. Let's be firm. If you want to stand for what you think is right, stand for it regardless of who is involved. There was a video of a boy who was seen beating his mother up. Like weeks later, he was found by his village people and he was tied to a tree and whooped. A lot of us enjoyed it because, yeah, serves you right. But if we had to have been a woman, would we have said, serves you right, the same way? Judge your conscience. Judge your bias. What is it that is holding you back from being being completely honest 100%? Is it your bias? So it's a very difficult and tricky conversation to have. But we have to have it. If you're a woman and your mouth is toxic and poisonous, yes, my personal opinion, if a man eventually hits you, you deserve it. I mean, I had a mom who was like that. But I didn't like that my dad hit her. I mean, that's before I grew up. I heard he hit her before I was, But even after I was older, I still heard her be that toxic against the man. So it's unfair for you to be in that kind of environment for too long. And then, like someone said, when the man is about to leave, you still hold him and say, do your worst, beat me, and then he beats you, he's a beast. Like, are you okay? Permit me to be 100% honest. Are you okay? You see someone who's bigger than you, stronger than you, just like my ex-wife did hit me. What if I hit her back? What if I had hit her back? I become the beast. Oh, but I endured. Pa. I became the man. Oh, that's some toxic masculinity. Unfortunately, the society would have misunderstood me if I had retaliated or defended myself. So I did not defend myself. Of course, because I wasn't even in that mental state to defend myself. I remained a vegetable, endured the abuse, so that I'm the peaceful one. So, there are a lot of things to say about this. There are a lot of examples to give about this. There are lots of them. Most of you have heard how Jada Pinkett talks to Will Smith. And then he endures so much and then takes it out on the weaker person outside. We blame him, but we forget he's under a certain influence. Of course, he should be free from that. But let's not also forget Stockholm Syndrome will make it impossible for you to escape abuse. You need the help of people who can see what's going on to force you out of that. Abuse. Disrespect. Swallow your pride, Nigerians. Swallow your pride. If a child tells you something you don't want to hear, listen. Don't react out of frustration. Listen. Learn to have difficult conversations. Learn to have healthy conflict. Do not attack a person. Attack an issue as kindly as possible, as you can. If you can't be kind, that's fine. But address an issue quickly so that you also don't become passive. But whatever you do, make sure you're not attacking a person, but an issue.